Claiming to have investigated over 10,000 cases in their storied career, Ed and Lorraine Warren are among some of the most famous ghost hunters to have ever lived. One of the most famous hauntings they did was that of the Amityville case. They have also been famous in founding the oldest paranormal research society in New England called NESPR, or the New England Society for Psychological Research. And of course, any horror movie buff knows that they inspired the Conjuring universe horror movies. So a little bit about them. Ed and Lorraine, just Ed, was born in September 7th of 1926, while Lorraine was born January 31st of 1927. Unfortunately, they've both passed away. Lorraine passed away fairly recently in April of 2019. On today's bite-sized episode, I just wanted to look into the Amityville horror case. According to Wikipedia, the Warrens were most likely best known for their investigation into the 1976 horror case. On Wikipedia, whoever wrote this article, they phrased the Amityville horror case as a fraud, which I will look into. If you don't know the story, here's a brief summary of it. A husband and wife by the name of George and Kaitie Lutz claimed that their house was haunted by a violent demonic presence, and it was so intense and eventually drove them out of the home. So if you've ever seen those movies, I forget the actor's name in the 1979 version, but the 2005 version, Ryan Reynolds plays George Lutz, and they're always seen kind of running out of the home. That's a really classic horror trope, where the demon basically ends up driving the family from the home. Of course, though, unlike most horror movies, this is being based on the claim that it is real. However, reasons leading to people saying that this was a fraud, that the Amityville horror conspiracy authors is the main culprit for this, Stephen and Roxanne Kaplan. They characterized the case as a hoax, and the story of the Amityville horror case is refuted by many eyewitness investigations, forensic evidence, and in 1979, lawyer William Reber reportedly stated that he, Jay Anson, and the occupants of the Amityville horror house invented the horror story over many bottles of wine. Of course, this would make sense why this supposedly true case, when looked into further, has a lot of just the horror movie tropes. Of course, Lorraine later refuted these claims of Stephen and Roxanne to the Express Times newspaper. My personal opinion, I tend to lead on the side of the skeptics. While I have yet to read these books, there's a book called The Amityville Horror Case. I believe that's what it's called. I'll post a link to it in the show description. This, of course, goes over, and it's what the horror movie is based off of, so it's George and Kaitie Lutz's claims of what happened in the house. And then there's another book by these two authors which refute everything that happened inside the controversial Amityville horror. Of course, I'm not saying that nothing could have happened to them in the house. Obviously, doing a paranormal podcast where people tell me their true ghost stories, I don't discredit them. I do believe that these people that I am interviewing have had these experiences of being touched, of being pulled, of being grabbed, of seeing apparitions. I'm just saying that stories sometimes get to be bigger than they actually are. If you think of the fabled I caught a fish this big, it's just kind of human nature to exaggerate things. And if we're to believe everything in the Amityville horror case is true, I just don't see how it hasn't had even more attention than it has had, you know.